Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. For those of you watching on video, please don't mind me awkwardly leaning toward the microphone and then kind of maybe pushing it toward Emily because I'm not used to doing a lot of in-person conversations. Although a few weeks ago I was at Johnson Tech and I spoke with Dr. Katie Leonard, and that worked out pretty well, but I'm still learning the nuances here. But anyway, we're coming to the end of June. And schools for a lot of schools just got out. Some have been out for a couple weeks, but we're in the midst of all that fun summertime activity. Whether you're an individual in a relationship as a couple, or if you have children, a family, it can get expensive, especially the more that you want to do, whether it's adding on to your pool, your patio, going on a vacation, a staycation, all of that can add up. So I have with me here today my friend and podcast sponsor, Emily Hickox of Budget Through Life. And we're going to talk about all of that stuff. And then in July, I will be taking a break from guests, but I will be doing little mini-sodes that will be kind of related to budgeting, and returning in August with some really fantastic guests that I cannot wait for you to hear those conversations. But without further ado, I think you guys know how I know Emily. Emily, I met at a Women in Philanthropy event in person, but she had been listening to the podcast. She's been a good friend who's helped me think about my finances better. And she's been a staunch supporter of this podcast and a sponsor. So I am thrilled to have Emily in my life. So, Emily, where should we begin with this topic?
Well, Janine, thanks again for having me on. I do love being on the podcast. I'm really excited for today because we're in the same space and we do spend a good amount of time together outside of the podcast, but this is our first time recording in person. So we'll do a lot of leaning and leaning back.
Until I get that like high-tech studio, which will be, maybe a year or two down the road.
We'll get there. We'll get there. So this is such a obviously timely topic, as most schools here in Pennsylvania are out already. I know where I'm from, schools are letting out this week in New York. So everyone's starting their travels. And my family, we started traveling last week. And it's funny because towards the end of the school year, I felt like we were spending a lot of money. There were still fundraisers going on. We were signing up for different things that would get us through the summer, planning vacations. And in my mind, I was like, oh, well, as soon as summer rolls around, we won't have as much going on. There won't be as many needs to spend money. And obviously I was wrong. Just like every year when we make assumptions about what's going to happen next in our budget, we forget how much everything really costs. And I've been doing having a lot of conversations with adults, even with children, about how money touches every aspect of our lives. There is very little things that we do that doesn't involve finances in some way. And summer, as fun and carefree as it's supposed to be, is absolutely no exception. So I think maybe we start with talking about just activities in general. I think that would be good because it applies to everybody.
Yeah,
It's summertime, whether you're working a full-time job through the summer, maybe your hours are a little different during the summer, whether you have kids or you don't have kids, there's always something to do.
yes.
And so I'd love to start there if that sounds
That
good.
would be a great place to start. And you're right, it does affect everyone. I am someone I've shared before. I don't have children. I'm not married. I'm one of those weird unicorns in NEPA. I wear a special letter on my sweater. I don't know what it is actually. No, kidding, but sort of. But there are a lot of activities. And like, so for example, I'll use myself just to get the ball rolling. So I am someone who, as a solopreneur, and for a variety of reasons, I'm not saying every solopreneur is the same. We're all very different, but I do have to watch what I spend. And I know everyone does. And as I did a reel the other day, and it's like, I know everyone listening is like, yeah, well, I have to watch my money too. I know, but there's a difference between someone making like 30,000 a year, 50,000 a year, 80,000 a year, 100, 200. There is a difference. So I'm just saying it is something that I really need to be mindful of. So when I'm choosing different things, I have to admit, I have to be careful of FOMO, because I see some people, I'm like, wow, she put on a new patio. She already took 2 vacations this year. Now she's in Mexico. I am someone who I took my vacation when I went to visit my friend Oliver. And those of you who listen to the podcast know I recorded an episode with Oliver in May since he and his husband moved there. That's my kind of big trip. I am hoping to take another trip to see my friends in France next year because I haven't seen them in over, gosh, 8 years. But for me, that's it. So for me, activities are kind of where it's at. I won't be taking any other trips, but it is like you do have to look a comedy performance. If it's someone, that's nationally known, it could be $100 ticket. Am I going to this Friday? I'm going to the Everhart Museum. And that was only like 10 or $15. And it's a happy hour. I get to go with friends. I became a member of the Everhart, which is relatively inexpensive for the year. So then you get discounts on their activities. So like for me, I'm looking for like maybe little day things, maybe going to wineries here and there. But I do have to watch what I spend. But I know when I do go out and I see the price of things, I go, wow, how does a family go to a baseball game, for 4 kids? And then there's the cotton candy, the ice cream, and the little, plastic helmet. How do they do all that? So anyway, that's my verbal diarrhea. So Emily does have children, and that you have to consider even more financially. So why don't you help us out with that?
Sure. So a couple of things you said are definitely things I want to touch on. I'll start with the FOMO because I think that is so important. And, typically whenever you ask me a question, or when anyone asks me a question, my answer is budget, right? My answer is always going to be, we have to budget. So the underlying tone of all of this is we have to understand how much money we have to spend for the summer in general, how we're going to split that up amongst vacations, activities, nights out, whatever it might be. But then once you know that, that's not enough because it's so easy for us to have that fear of missing out, see what other people are doing, and very quickly, very easily get off track. And it might seem like, oh, it's just an extra $10. But if you do that every single week, it adds up. And in most cases, it's not an extra $10. In most cases, we're talking hundreds of dollars that people will spend on activities they hadn't planned for. So what are your options to really fight the FOMO? we talk about FOMO a lot in our house because my daughter's too young to listen and appreciate the podcast. So I feel like I could talk about her for at least the next few years. She has terrible FOMO. So we work really hard on managing that. And I think we all feel it though. One of the ways, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit. You mentioned your fake or real friend with all of those things that they did. How do you know they did all those things?
Because I see them in real time, not just on social media.
Not just on social media.
I see them in without giving too much away. I see them in real time and I see them on social media. And so I know the reality. I shouldn't say I know the reality. Let me stop there. I have no idea what this person's finances are, other than what I know what they do for a living and their household. But I don't know. For all I know, they could have had an amazing like bump in money 5-10 years ago, and they're managing it, and they've got a nice little nest egg. I don't know that, and I remind myself it's none of my business. But one thing I did do the other day, because I'm like, wow, another vacation. It was 3 seconds of me being green with envy-ish, kind of. And then I said to myself, Janine, you cannot compare yourself, and you don't know what their story is, what their finances are, and it's really not your concern. So that's how I got over that.
That makes sense. But you do see it on social media. And I think that's the number one place to start, is to limit the time you spend on social media. And that's easy to say. It is so much harder to do. What you can do, especially in Facebook, because I think especially people from like our generation, they're still on Facebook. We still think it's cool.
Well, I don't know if we think it's cool. We think it's necessary.
We think it's necessary, exactly. But Facebook has, the bottom controls on the mobile version that you can click events. So one of the key things is don't click that unless you're looking for something very particular, because it's amazing how you click events and all of a sudden you've spent like $100 on the weekend that you didn't plan to spend. It's very tempting. Obviously, there's a lot of wonderful graphic designers out there that are making these Facebook event covers that make it look like it's going to be the best thing ever. And, I try to do that as well, but it really entices you to click on the event, learn more about it, and often end up going. The other reason social media becomes a big problem with these activities is you see what your friends are doing. So if your friend clicked interested or going on a Facebook event, it's going to come up in your newsfeed. And I've very often in the last few weeks clicked interested in something or going, especially for things I had already planned to do. And then all of a sudden I get notifications that, oh, my best friend Kathy is also interested and this person's interested. And I don't have a friend named Kathy, but just saying, there's this ripple effect of everybody being interested. And then you start to feel like, oh gosh, I better go to this. And then Facebook does this other really tricky thing. If lots of people have clicked interested, it gives you a notification that such and such event is becoming popular.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes.
And that also makes you feel like, well, I better be at that event. So as far as, the day-to-day activities, that's one way to avoid them, is just to limit what you're looking at and remind yourself that, you don't have to go to every event.
Yeah.
But there's going to be events you want to go to.
Sure.
You want to do things, you want to enjoy the summer. So I talk a lot about the different things you can do that are low cost or free. And we're very fortunate that we have an incredible state park system, like absolutely incredible. I might botch this fact, but I was reading one of the plaques at Lackawanna State Park, and I think the goal when the state park system was created was that everybody would have a park within 25 miles of where they live. That's why we have so many, which is amazing.
That's great. Yes.
And there's pros and cons to the state parks for sure, but finding activities, especially for families, that you can do that are free or low cost. So you can, most of the state parks have playgrounds, hikes. We're starting to get into geocaching. I hope I'm saying that right.
I geocached with an ex of mine back, over 20 years ago, like in the dark once. Just once, I think. Yeah. Or maybe twice. I don't remember. But it was fun. It was very cool. Yeah. And I could see that with families, with kids would love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they think they call it treasure hunting. So we're going to be at a state park out in the western part of the state next week, maybe. And we're going to do 2 big treasure hunts, as the kids are calling them.
That's very
cool.
Very
excited.
Yeah. I'm glad, and then we can move on to a different aspect, but I'm glad you mentioned the free or low cost, because I was going to say, you don't have to just say, okay, well, I can't do anything. Like, if you're someone like me who is on a more limited budget, there is a lot that you can do for free. And as I mention every week, being connected to people and everything, and this, I'm not saying that you have to be for this, but this is when that comes in handy, when you are someone who does go out to different things like networking events and you meet people. My point in that is just that you tend to be a little bit more aware and have more information about different organizations. So, oh, they do this, they sponsor that. So that's another reason to kind of, and this is not meant to sound judgmental or shady, lift your head out, poke your head up from the hole, because I know a lot of people have kind of retreated since the pandemic. But, when you do go out and you run into someone, they might be like, oh, I'm on the board of this nonprofit and we do this or that. And Emily had mentioned the Facebook, but there are some free events on Facebook or some things that are low cost. Like if there's a community flea market that an organization is doing. I will say, and this is a shout out for July, St. Stanislaus in South Scranton. It was funny, a couple people I know were going and we all ended up there in the same afternoon. It's like a Friday, Saturday. You can go there. And I mean, I don't know, some people out there might be like, no, thank you. I only buy new things made in China. I like to go to consignment shops, yard sales. Like I don't go to a lot of yard sales, I'll admit, but like this particular one, St. Stanislaus, is huge. And I got some lovely old antique wooden frames and like some Halloween decorations. If you're someone who likes that, so you're getting like a ghost for $1 instead of spending like 12 or 13. So those types of things are great. Plus I want to give a shout out to concert series. There's like a summer concert series at Naog Park. And I think it's, don't quote me on this, but I think it's every Wednesday evening, a different musician. And then I did see something where they're doing it in West Scranton at a little park there. And I don't know what night of the week, but again, a free concert series. And to Emily's point, you've heard me mention, I love going for hikes and kayaking and doing those sorts of things. So taking advantage of what's in your area is also another great thing for your budget. But let's talk about staycations and vacations. And I mean, that can be so much. And not to admit, there's real FOMO there. Like I said, when I saw the palm trees, I'm like, oh, where the hell'd she go now? And again, that's my issue. That's nobody else's. But sometimes you simply can't, you don't have it in your budget to travel. So what are some things that you can suggest to people?
So when it's really not an option, I love the idea of staycations if it's done right. I think you really need to find ways to disconnect from your daily life. And that is really, really challenging when you're in your own home. But thinking about it, having the mindset of a tourist in your own backyard is a very exciting thing to do. So when you're planning a staycation, you don't want to just tell people, I'm just staying home this week and this is just gonna be a week I do nothing, or I'm gonna be offline. You want to really plan it just like you would any other vacation. So get yourself in the mindset of, I'm going on a trip and I'm going to have a budget, because even a staycation needs a budget. You're still going to spend money. What can I do inside that budget? And it's going to also be researching what are the free or low cost opportunities in your area, but you want to make them special. You want to try to find things that are going to make you feel like this week or these 3 days are different than all other days of my summer. So, for example, if you don't regularly go to Everhart, if you're not a member there, maybe you've never been there, maybe that's a place that you go. You put that on the list, you figure out what it's going to cost to get there, what programs they're running. And Everhart in particular, they're on a list right now for families that are on SNAP and benefits that they can go for free.
Just saw that. Yep.
Yeah. So I was really excited to see that, because I have a lot of families I want to recommend that to, because it's a wonderful museum. Especially my kids have really enjoyed it. They spend about an hour in that gem room and they think they're in like, I don't know, secret place.
I had, as a child, I had a little pencil that it had a plastic tube on the end that had little gemstones, because they used to have a gift shop. And I just thought of that, popped into my head recently when I was in there, and I'm like, oh, such great memories. But yeah, it's a great place for kids.
Yeah. The concert series you mentioned, just looking up what's happening around you, that you really get in the mindset of a tourist. What would a tourist do if they were coming to visit my home city? Restaurants too, trying to find places to eat. Obviously on a staycation, you might do some cooking still, but it's good to go out to eat. But maybe instead of going to a fancy restaurant, you're checking out one of the many food fests, especially here in Scranton. We have multiple food fests over the summer. You're going to one of those. You need a budget for it, but you're going to it. So really thinking about, how can I make the best of it? What's interesting is I've had a lot of conversations very recently about camping, and how, we're gonna go camping because it's more affordable. But the reality is that that's not so true right now anymore. But regardless of the type of vacation, when you're looking at what other people are doing, you do have to have that little bit of conversation with yourself of, well, number one, I don't know how much that costs. Number two, I don't know how they paid for it. And, regardless of income, it doesn't matter how much money you're bringing in. If you have a significant amount of debt, you don't actually have the money to spend. So you can have a 6-figure income and be living on credit. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. And sometimes it helps to price out the trip. Every once in a while, I get advertisements and I get FOMO about a Nickelodeon resort in the Riviera Maya. And my kids are currently obsessed with SpongeBob. And I would love to get them one of these pineapple cabanas at the pool.
I want one.
I know, it looks fantastic. I'm not going to lie, even I really want to go. I was a big SpongeBob fan too. And I priced it out to make myself come back to reality that we're not going on a $17,000 vacation this year. We're just not, that's not in the cards for us. So that's an activity I go through once in a while. When I have that FOMO, I look up how much it's going to cost. And then I look at my bank account and I say, nah, pass.
Not today.
Not today. We're going to eat instead.
Yeah. I would like to just, this is my, I don't know, liberal arts brain or whatever. you're talking about like getting to know your own home, your area, or maybe you're taking a day trip, whatever, that's an hour away, 2 hours away. And then you do have to calculate, of course, the cost of gas, so their tolls, that kind of thing. But I think this is where, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but there are many things I'm not good at, but something I just read an article recently about creativity. And a lot of times people don't think they are. I am someone who has a creative brain and I'm curious. I want to know things. So this is where, if you're not normally like that, take the time, as Emily said, to have a whole different, don't treat it like, oh, we're just staying home. Treat it like you are someone who's just getting to know your area, especially if you don't already know it. Be curious, walk around town and see what things are, or, do a Google search of something, near you, and get to know different things in the region, in the county, or even maybe just an hour away. Like be curious, because I think that will lead you to different ideas. Because I will say, and again, not to just bring it back to, but as an example, I am someone, anyone who knows me knows that I am proud of the many gems that we have in this region. Yes, we have problems like every other area. We don't even need to open that door. I know them. They're in the news. People bitch about things on social media all the time. Feel free to check it out. But I'm a fan of this area, and I've always been one. So when I had friends visiting in 2015 from France, of course I had people going to me, "Oh, what are you going to show them here?" And of course I like just gave them looks and said, "You're insignificant," and I walk away. But no, but seriously, they enjoyed everything. I took them on a walking tour of downtown Scranton, and that was free. We got to see architecture. I took them to the Anthracite Museum at McDade Park. I had never been there. I learned a lot. I mean, I did take day trips to the Corning Museum, 2 hours away, Finger Lakes, New York City, but they enjoyed seeing, they no longer practice Catholicism, but they love architecture. They enjoyed seeing St. Anne's Monastery. They enjoyed trying Old Forge pizza for the first time and having a beer and seeing an American baseball game. So like there are things, if you're curious, to do architect, different things like that. So just be curious. And, again, I'm just being a proud Scrantonian and saying, if people from France came here, and I will tell you, when I took them inside the Radisson, the Lackawanna station, because that's an old train station, inside there, the mosaic tiles, the marble, Jean-Claude Deguine, who is the husband of Marie, that was this couple that came, he taught design in college in France. His mouth, and I'm not joking, was open and went, oh, gasping when he saw the mosaic tiles. He thought they were so beautiful. But ask yourself, have you seen this yet? If you're in Lackawanna County, Northeast PA, and I know this podcast goes beyond that, but no matter where you live, maybe go to the Historic Society in your area. Be curious, get to know where you live, and don't just see it as a place where you hang your hat and you come home when you're tired or whatever. And I'm sorry, I went off on that. But anyway, Emily, back to you.
No, that's great. All really great stuff. I think getting into that mindset is really good. Also, setting time boundaries is important. When you say you're taking a staycation, really set the boundaries of that. Like my vacation is Monday through Friday, or whatever you choose it to be. It'll help you stay focused when you're planning. And it'll also help you remember that you're not on staycation outside of that week, right? So we all have those moments where we come home from vacation and we're still in vacation mode, and we continue to go out to eat. We continue to do all these extracurriculars that if we weren't in vacation mode, we wouldn't do. So we have to also be conscious of that when we either come back physically or come back mentally, that we do come back.
Sometimes mental is a little bit harder. Come on back now.
Yes, we have to get back to the regularly scheduled programming.
That's a really good point. Yeah. So what about, and I don't know if you want to address actual vacations, and then after that, I want to talk to you a little bit about, it can also be a busy time for like home improvement or projects on your deck, or like if you do have a pool, those are expensive, things like that. But let's talk about vacations. Any tips on how you would handle that in a financially responsible way?
Yeah, the most financially responsible thing you can do when planning a vacation is to be honest. You have to be honest with yourself. And just like I was sharing my experience with the Nickelodeon resort, I'm honest with myself that that's just not in the cards for us right now. And it doesn't mean we can't have an amazing summer and we can't have a great time. But what's in the cards for us and what's realistic and responsible is the kinds of vacations that my family currently does. For us, it's camping. We love going camping. Many call it glamping because I think your listeners know I'm originally from Long Island. I do not sleep in a tent. This is not a thing. So we have a travel trailer, but it's just being honest about what you can afford and and that's starting with the style of vacation. So for some people that might mean you want to go to the beach, but you're not going to stay at a 5-star resort. You're going to rent a condo for a few days, or you're going to bring a camper and stay at a campground, or you have friends and you might be able to stay with friends and buy them some meals and clean up after yourself when you do that. But so that's step one, is just be honest about what type of trip you can afford. Then once you've figured that out, you want to make sure that you're planning for what that trip is truly going to cost. So I talk a lot in different aspects, the home improvement, buying a house, whatever it might be, is what are the true costs of doing this? And like you mentioned, the gas to get there, or, if you're flying, it's not just the plane ticket, right? You're going to walk through that airport that has a significant amount of things you're going to want to buy.
Oh my gosh.
And they're going to charge you $10 for a smoothie.
Can I tell you, like, just quickly, like going to visit Oliver, who I love, and I had the best time, and he and his husband treat me so great. The money I spent on like just random, like a bottle of water. I had some turbulence on the way back and felt sick. A bottle of ginger ale. Like, I think I spent like $30 or $40. And of course, on my way there, I was in total vacation mode, 2 mimosas and a crappy croissant, and it was over $50. That, to me, at home, would I do that so quickly? No. And I was like, oh, I'm on vacation. And that was not the best move, I want to say.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example. And then, so thinking about your past experiences and saying, okay, what's tripped me up in the past? What can I plan for? The example I have in my head right now is when we go camping, most campgrounds have ice cream. Ice cream is my family's weakness. We have a significant ice cream problem. I'm pretty sure my daughter and I are lactose intolerant, and we still continue to eat ice cream. It's a serious problem. So this year, because we are on a tighter budget with me launching a new business and some transitions we're going through, instead of feeling like I had to buy them ice cream every day at the campground, I bought ice cream to bring with us and stocked our camper with mini ice cream sandwiches and ice cream cones, and each box of 10 treats costs $2 at Aldi. And the ice cream that you would buy at the campground would have cost me about $10 every time they wanted to go. So there's a significant amount of money to be saved by planning for the things that you know are going to trip you up. Alcohol is a big one for a lot of people. So when you're planning trips, you got to think about, you're not, whether you're drinking or not, even if it's not alcohol, drinks in general can be expensive. How can I offset that? Or how can I plan for that? Bringing your own reusable water bottles. A lot of places will let you refill. Airports now too have refillable fountains.
And I did know that when I was traveling, but not that I'm gonna sound snobby here, but my one thing, I drink a lot of water, and it tastes a little bit funky sometimes. Like, I don't know if it's spring water. So I will freely admit, I did know that. And I thought about, and I even have a little collapsible like cup thing that I got at a 5K that Geisinger sponsored. And I was going to, and I'm like, I don't like the taste of the water. So I draw the line with that kind of stuff, but that's me. That's my preference.
Yeah. That's right. But for those who don't have a concern with the taste, what I always recommend is putting empty water bottles in your carry-on. And then once you get through security, fill them up. And we did that with our kids the last time we flew, and it was fantastic because as soon as we crossed that line, I filled water bottles and everybody stopped whining.
Yeah.
And same thing with snacks, keeping snacks in your car when you're doing road trips or to and from airports, just having those things with you so you don't feel like you get off an airplane and oh gosh, I need to go through McDonald's right now. I am starving. Have something in the car, not chocolate because it's summer and it'll melt. And I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
But have something in the car that you can quickly grab and feel satiated and not spend money you didn't plan on.
Yeah. And that's, to that point, I'll just share again. That's good advice in general, like overall, because there's a lot of times when, again, because I live alone, I mean, I don't have starving kids at home, so it's not like I'm not feeding them. I don't have children. So for me, I don't mind, not doing the best things for myself. So if I go through the day, maybe don't have a proper lunch, whatever, and then I go to a networking event or I have a comedy show or whatever, there are many times when coming home, I'm starving. And what do I do? Usually go to McDonald's, but again, I'll give a shout out to you and Megan at Joy World, the way that you've had me thinking, just reminding myself of those things. I was proud to say there were at least 2 or 3 times in the past few months where I'm like, no, you don't need to stop. You don't need to stop at McDonald's. And in my head, I was like, well, what do I have at home? Okay, so I'll make a peanut butter sandwich or something. Like I knew I had something at home. I didn't need to stop. So I think it's a mind shift and a mindset. So with these types of tips, I think it helps people put that into their mind. Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing to note is that, the economy is really changing in the fast food world, and it's not the cheap alternative anymore.
No.
It is not an inexpensive journey to go through the drive-through anymore. So you're really, you're not saving anything. So we've lost the health benefits, like we know they were never there,
Right.
but now we've even lost the economic benefits of fast food. So you're not saving much. I obviously the convenience is the only thing left, but at what cost? If you just the time you might wait in the drive-through, could you throw together a peanut butter sandwich and survive the day? We don't
Yes.
have to have a gourmet meal every time we eat.
Yeah. And what I was going to get wasn't going to be gourmet anyway.
No,
we're talking
definitely
about
not.
a smushed cheeseburger and fries.
That might be burger.
Yeah. And it's not even, right? It's
Not
just the mustard and the ketchup and the pickle might be real, but I don't know. Well, as we move on and wrap up to our last, I mean, unless you have another topic, but I do want to kind of talk about a lot of people tend to do home improvement projects, and maybe not even home improvement, although that is part of it. Maybe landscaping additions, and again, I'll admit my FOMO because I see what some of the folks who live near me are doing, and I'm like, oh, I would love to put up another like a fence or something, and those are damn expensive. Let me tell you, one thing I can share, and I shared with you before I hit the record button. I was in April, I went to my cousin's wedding, which was a lavish affair. It was absolutely gorgeous in Philadelphia. And my friend Kristen, I brought her as my date. We went to this place called the Continental. I think it's the Continental for lunch. And they seated us in these chairs that were like those egg swings that were like rattan or wicker. I thought it was the best thing. And in my head, from that moment, April 12th or 13th, I was like, I'm getting one. I'm getting one for my deck. To the point where when I was on vacation with at Oliver's, 2 or 3 of his neighbors had them. And I even asked the one guy, I'm like, where did you get your swing thing? And he got it at BJ's Wholesale or whatever it is, like a Costco. So I have been obsessing and looking online, and I found one at Home Depot for like $164, whatever it was. And then I had a wake up call. And again, I don't mind sharing my business. It's challenging as a solopreneur, and there are a variety of reasons for where I'm at, but I owe taxes, IRS, not back taxes. I'm not, I pay my taxes, but this year alone, over $3,000. So for me, needing that and wanting that, and then getting my reminder, I'm doing it in installments because I don't have the money to pay over $3,000 flat to the IRS for my federal taxes. And so when I got that reminder in the mail a couple of weeks ago, I said, you know what? I really do not need that egg chair. And sure, did I want it? Would it provide me with soothing comfort? Sure, but I don't need it. And right now it's not the smartest thing. So the money I had been saving for that, or, I also need a new couch, but I'm not worried about that. It's a little lumpy. I said, I'm going to use this for an installment on my taxes. And it wasn't that painful for me because I have chairs on my deck. It is my peaceful place. Anyone who looks on my social media knows me. It's my favorite place in the morning to watch the birds, favorite place in the evening when the sun goes down. I have chairs that I can enjoy from. So for me, that was you don't need it. But there are people who will say, what can we afford? What are we going to do with our backyard, the landscaping? What's your thoughts on that, Emily?
Oh gosh, I have so many thoughts because I'm in a position where I have a deck that if you saw it, you'd be petrified because everyone thinks they're just going to fall off of it. And they're probably correct. It's needed to be redone since the minute we bought the house, but there's a back patio that is used more, and that was more important. So that's where we kind of get into the conversation of priorities. What's the priority?
Mhm.
And we said, oh, we're going to prioritize this back patio instead of this front deck. And great decision. We saved up for it. We pulled a lot of things together to be able to do that, and I'm glad we did it. But I'll have friends come over and say, well, when are you going to do the deck over here? And I said, oh, well, my spreadsheet says 2027, but we'll see. But that's often my answer for people is, let's look at the spreadsheet. So when I work with clients, I make them a debt snowball. And I think you and I have talked about that, kind of putting together a repayment plan of all of your debts. And what that allows you to do is very quickly glance at where you want your money to be going. It really helps you stay focused on the priority of paying off debt, but it also helps you say, well, if this chair is something that is really going to improve my mental health, if this is something that is going to contribute to the quality of my life, and that's okay if the answer is yes to those questions. If I don't put this $164 towards my debt, what does that do? And it very quickly, it's just a spreadsheet that allows you to take that $164 out of your plan, and you see the impact. Now, you might do that and see that, well, this only sets me back like 30 days in my debt payoff plan in the scheme of 5 years. I'm going to do this. So it kind of gives you that room to not just make an emotional decision, but make a really logical, informed decision. And it's okay if the answer is, you know what, I'm going to prioritize the landscaping. When I pull into my driveway, there are things that really stress me out. And if my husband's listening, I'm sorry, but this, and we've been married a while, so it's okay. And there are things that if you said to me today, if you give me $500, I will clean all these things up, I will find that $500. I will do a lot of things to find that $500. The issue for us.
Can you tell me what those are? Maybe I can do them for my problems.
I know, right? I have a list in my back pocket. We can share notes. But to me, like that act of pulling in my driveway and feeling peace and comfort is worth a lot of money to me. That might not be worth a lot of money to people. So really asking yourself, how will this make me feel? And if this is a priority for me, how do I make it happen? How do I sacrifice something else? Where can I get this? Where can I save otherwise? Maybe I don't go out to eat for 3 weeks straight and magically I have $164 because it adds up quick. So it's more than just a yes or no. It's a how do I prioritize and taking into account my financial health and my mental health.
Yeah. And I think, we've talked about that before a little bit on the podcast, but I think it is so important because like you're saying, prioritize, but priorities are different for everybody. Like some people could care less maybe how their landscaping looks, or it's just boring. And as long as their grass is cut, and I'm saying boring, that's my word, grass is cut, they're fine with it. Mm-hmm. Where other people, again, if you're someone who's more of a homebody and you take great pride or joy in sitting on your porch or your deck or whatever, and just looking at the beauty of your garden, then it is a priority. And that's going to vary from person to person. So, and fortunately, that's where maybe the FOMO doesn't really matter, because maybe someone is doing something and spending money on something that you really don't care about because it's not important to you. So mm-hmm. I think, and to Emily's point, prioritize. And then again, there's that damn spreadsheet that I still have yet to, we have to meet offline. On. Emily and I need to do that. Yeah. So for me, it was a rational decision, but I didn't have a spreadsheet. I had a letter from the IRS that I looked at, and it wasn't emotional. And I was glad to say, I can live without this. And I'm totally 100% fine with that. But there are things, to your point, if this really would help you with your mental health, because maybe sometimes, you might get into a depression, or you might look at your finances and go, oh God, I can't do anything. So maybe it would set you back a month, but it's really going to help you feel better. And that is important because when you feel better, you can do better.
Mhm.
You know, you have more confidence. You can, maybe go out there and change the job you have, or, if you're an entrepreneur, you can reach out to more people and be confident in your skills and everything. So it is important to consider mental health. And we have discussed that before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
I will just add, you had asked about pools. You mentioned pools and stuff like that.
Very expensive. I don't have one,
Oh,
but
very expensive. My in-laws have one, and until they don't, I will not. I watch how much work and money goes into that, and I'm very grateful for it if they're listening. But one of the things that happened here last week in Northeastern PA is we had the heat dome, which is a new phenomenon to us, but I think it'll be happening more often, where we have these like really intense periods of high temperatures without the storms to relieve the heat and the humidity. And it was a rough week. It was a rough week for
Really
a lot of
rough.
people, especially because in our
Girl,
area,
it was hot.
yeah, it was hot. And we have a lot of pools and splash pads at the state parks and city parks that are closed right now. So that doesn't help. I'm
Yeah.
hoping we're getting out of that, but that did not help the situation. So I had two friends send me text messages during the heat of last week with pictures of pools they were going to buy. They're like, I'm going to buy this. And I told them, no, don't buy that. Like, you can't impulse buy a pool.
Were they inflatables or were they real pools?
They were pretty much, one was an inflatable, one was like a stick thing going on, but something you can buy at, Sam's Club.
Amazon,
You can walk
yeah.
in the door and it's in your
Ah.
face. There's water slides. There's all these things in your face that remind you, yes, you can have cool down temperatures. But you have to remember that that comes with a lot of cost. It's a lot of work to maintain. Even these blow up pools, they actually require so much more manual work.
Oh, wow.
Because you physically have to keep them clean. Like, there's a lot to do there. And then you have to take them down. You have to deal with all that. But in some cases, people forget that they're going to ruin their yard. So then you have to deal with that if you decide you don't want
dying
to,
underneath,
the grass dying. So if you don't want to deal with that. So thinking about, okay, this is just 1 week. These domes are not going to last forever. How can we get through this differently? We hosed our kids a few times and they survived. So it's just a hose, a garden hose. It's really cheap to buy a sprinkler for your garden and just use it as a self-soothing station.
Yeah.
So little things that you can do to beat the heat without a huge investment.
Yeah. And I was fortunate, again, shout out to my friend Kristen, who has a beautiful in-ground pool. She was gracious enough to have me, I was up there 3 or 4 nights and it was fantastic. And she recently switched to saltwater. Apparently that is an investment you can make, but once you do, I mean, she said, do you feel different? I'm like, no, I don't know. But I guess it did after she asked. I was like, okay, it does, but I wouldn't have been able to identify it, but it was beautiful. I just didn't even want to get out of it. But I mean, we don't all have friends with a pool. I was fortunate to have that opportunity, but otherwise I have one air conditioner and it's downstairs, which is great for if I'm, working on my laptop trying to think and, my brain is not fried. But upstairs, we know heat rises. My upstairs, you could literally slice off a piece of the heat. It was a wall I would smack into. And so I have just a ceiling fan and another fan in my bedroom. So what I would do, I have anything that you can put in the freezer, although I didn't stoop so low as to use my veggies because I didn't want to wake up on a, defrosted broccoli bag. But I did use things that like you can heat or ice for like, for headaches or muscle aches. So I had 3 or 4 of those I would take out of the freezer every night. And I would put them under my neck and under, certain points that are hot. And they help me actually fall asleep. So, I mean, I know that's kind of a weird, but like that's not that expensive. And if you do have those things in your freezer, like you normally might put on, a knee or an injury, if you've got a few of them, I'm telling you, they helped me cool me off at night. So there's always ways if we look for them, different tips. So as we wrap up here, is there anything else? We covered a lot for the summer, and I think these are great tips. And of course, Emily will be back in a couple months with more information for a different topic related to budget and financing. But is there anything tied to summer in closing that you would want to either highlight what you said or something new that we didn't talk about?
I think it's just really important to remember that summer is just a season, and it's followed by fall, which comes with a lot of other
Another season.
expenses. Just another season.
Foliage trips.
Foliage trips, yes. Back to school,
Mm.
you know, longer work hours where you might need to buy more meals outside the home. So, you know, just keep in mind that, yeah, it's wonderful, and there's better music about summer, and it's all happy, feel good for the most part, but that it's just a season, and that you can't forget all your other goals, that we can't lose sight of all our goals for the year just for this one season. So we're not going to say, oh, well, I'm not going to worry about paying off this credit card because it's summer and we're doing summer activities, or I'm not going to worry about saving up for a new car because it's summer. And I do hear that a lot. I do hear people say, well, it's summer, I'm going to, you know, spend this extra bit. It's summer, I'm going to go out for ice cream every day. Guilty in prior years. But and especially living a little too close to Manning's, that's a problem for me.
Oh, yeah. See the
But
cows and everything.
oh, the cows, yeah. If you could get past the smell some days.
Well, yeah, in 90-degree heat, I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to smell the manure.
Not a fan. They do have a very nice pavilion though, so it helps. But you know, kind of just keeping yourself in check, that just because the weather is better, kids are off from school, and all these other things might be different, we can't sacrifice all the work we did in the other 3 seasons of the year.
Yeah. And I think that's good advice. And of course, because of who I am, I'm going to reference that to a Seinfeld episode where, you know, I don't even know which episode, but he talked about like night guy and day guy. So night guy staying up late and like, oh, who cares? Day guy's got to get up early. So don't be summer guy or summer gal, not worrying about the rest of the year. You're the whole person, the whole guy, gal, and binary person. You're the whole person. So and I think it kind of just ties in line with goes in line with other things you've said, the basics, as far as no matter when it is, thinking ahead, really, right? That's a big part of, that's why you budget, you forecast, you look ahead. So keeping in mind that, yes, there are very romanticized versions of the summer. Oh, you'll fall in love with wine, with cheese, with ice cream, with men, women, other whatever you'll fall in love with. It's only one season, as Emily said. So that is really important to keep in mind, that you have to live in the whole season, every season of the year. So keeping that in mind without freaking out, obviously, you know, having fun, but not at your cost of, think of winter guy or girl. What are they going to be doing when you don't have any money, right? You need heat too. So
yep, they're going to be mad at you.
Yes, summer person. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. As always, Emily, it's a pleasure to see you, talk to you, whether on the podcast or off. But I think this is great advice, information. It's so relatable, and everybody really could use it and needs to hear it.
Thanks so much for having me. Love being here.
Thank you. And hopefully you've enjoyed our in-person. So if you haven't been to the YouTube channel, make sure you go to Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. And oh, hey, by the way, make sure you visit Budget Through Life on YouTube and on Facebook and on Instagram. And Emily Hickox, not Hemily, that's her evil twin sister. Emily Hickox is on LinkedIn. So you can catch up with Emily, follow Budget Through Life. There's some great videos, some meal tips and all of that on the YouTube channel, and follow on Facebook and Instagram. And as I said, July will be a break from guests. I'm telling you, I hate the word guests because I feel like I sound like a snake and I can't get the word out. So guest plural, I won't be doing those in July, but don't forget about me, because I'm going to be on here so that you don't forget about me. I'm going to be doing in December, I called them Merry Musings. I don't know what I'll call them, mini-sodes. So I will be just getting on here for 5-10 minutes, sharing a couple thoughts. And in August, I will return with guest plural, more than one guest. And I'm excited of the possibilities. As I said, I won't share a couple that I just hope to schedule with. Very excited about, but of course I'm excited about every person I talk to, every woman, because they have something fantastic to say. And I know that you can learn something from everyone, especially if you're curious. Be curious. That's the best way to be in life. So thank you so much, as always, for listening. It means the world to me. And I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through Zoom, trying to find my end button. There it is. Okay. I had a blank moment and it's not even hot out. Thank God Emily was with me in the studio. I was randomly looking at things on Zoom here on the bottom toolbar. So thank you again, as always, so much for listening. It means the world to me. And if you're interested in being a sponsor so that I can keep creating this fantastic content, listen to me, fantastic. Screw it, I'm going to say it. Fantastic content. Please reach out to me, and I can work with your budget, as we've talked about. It doesn't have to be, don't think, oh, I can't afford that. Yeah, you can. Let's talk about it. Even if it's one episode, or if you'd like to make a donation, like, hey, here's $5 I found in my couch cushions because I care about you and I want to support this podcast. You can do that as well. Also, if it's not in your budget to even do that, you know what you can do? Share this podcast. Share it on social media, tell a friend, foe, or anyone you know. Write a testimonial or review. Get the word out there, because little gals and guys like me need that kind of support. It does mean the world. So, as I always say, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.